Good morning, and welcome to the H2G Podcast presents The Wire.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is The Wire. We are back after some technical difficulties, but I'm very excited about this week. I feel like we have some really cool topics. Justin is about to hit us up with a great one. He kind of started sparking this debate, and I told the guys, let's wait till now. So we've had no preparation and no discussion with each other, but it's a really, really interesting topic. And Justin, if you have that up, I'm going to leave the floor to you, my friend.
Yeah, man. I'm always scrolling through to see if there's anything that we're missing other than the stuff that hits SportsCenter every day. And I saw this interesting stat block comparison between LeBron James. As you know, he's played for 17 seasons in the NBA. He's got 4 NBA championships. If you guys didn't know, his 2020 salary was $37.44 million. His bonus for winning the 2020 finals was $370,000. Now, this stat block is actually sitting right next to another stat block for a one Sue Bird, who has played 17 seasons in the WNBA. She has 4 WNBA championships. Her 2020 salary was $215,000. Her bonus for winning the 2020 finals was $11,356. Again, LeBron 2020 salary $37.44 million. 2020 salary for Sue Bird is $215,000. Bonus for winning the NBA finals $370,000. WNBA $11,356. So before I say anything, we're gonna kick it around. But to me, I'm just like, wow. Regardless of the talent difference here, I'm seeing an astronomical monetary difference when it comes to salary. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say.
Well, I mean, the first thing that has to be brought up, it is unfair if you look at it in that aspect that a woman is making that much less than LeBron James, but then you also have to factor in everything that surrounds that. So if you look it up, the WNBA players earn less because the league only generates $25 million in annual revenue, while the NBA rakes in a whopping $7.4 billion. So you put that at play, of course, they're going to have more funds to play with, whereas the WNBA doesn't. Now, is it fair? Absolutely not. But that's the only thing that I'm going off of when I look at that is the fact that if they were making the same amount of money in the WNBA as they were in the NBA, this would be a completely different conversation. And that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah. I also would like to kind of go into that. I'm not going to get too descriptive yet. I'd like Marvin to have his chance before I start going into statistics. Side note, I love Sue Bird. I actually do love the WNBA, and I'm not trying to say, people don't watch it, but I think a lot of people, particularly recently, have been discussing the WNBA, and they're using the hashtags, and they're trying to get people to notice the WNBA. Most notably because you see these, there are these massive discrepancies in pay. And I'm not here to debate specifically whether somebody does or doesn't deserve X amount of dollars. I personally think the NBA players are paid too much. And I think as a whole, the league makes too much. And here's what I mean. LeBron James, let's say he makes 40 million. I don't know the exact number. Let's say he makes 40 million. It's close to that at this point. He makes more than an NFL player. I'm not saying what somebody should or shouldn't make, but when you look at it from viewership, it starts to get muddly. And this is exactly what the NBA versus WNBA dispute is, right? We look at it from the perspective of, and here's where I have some data for you guys real quick. The NBA average attendance is approximately 18,000. That's due to, courts. It could be bigger depending on the court, but you're talking of an average of 18,000. The average attendance at a WNBA game is 6,700. So you're at 1/3 the attendance rate. now we talk about ratings. Ratings is a big deal too, and this is how much you're able to make with your sponsorships. The NBA, which again we'll compare later to the NFL, but the NBA reaches approximately 15 million and has an 8.8 average in their playoffs, and it usually at least a 5 rating during typical games, which is, I don't know, a neighborhood of like 7.5, 8 million viewers. The WNBA has a 0.6 rating. So I don't know how to say this without being rude, but they're just not watched as much. Eyes aren't on it. And so what I would suggest to people who really want to advocate for the WNBA players making more, and as somebody who does watch the games, so you need to watch the games, guys. You can sit here and talk about discrepancies and this and that and the other, but quite frankly, to all the women in particular who are talking about this and wanting this to change, you have to help be part of that change. And the only way, truthfully, you will help is not making complaints and lodging it. It's viewership. You need to be part of those eyeballs. Even if you choose not to watch the game, then turn it on your damn TV, do something, because that's really the only way you're going to help these women. And a lot of these women aren't even trying to say, let me clarify this, that they should be making X% of what LeBron James makes. That's not their claim, because they understand that's not the reality, right? Because you can only get paid what your league can drive. And the bottom line is the league isn't driving money, and you have to help that. You have to help it, and you're not going to help it by making tweets or complaining on Facebook. You're going to help it by actively participating and helping this league. I think these women are incredible. I think there are differences. I think the ball's an inch smaller, and it's about 4 ounces less, which makes a difference. Rim size is different, etc. But they're great players, and I also don't want to try to denounce or renounce or they're more old school, this, that, and the other, because it implies they're not athletic. And I don't like going that route. That's what people sometimes try to say. They're different games. They absolutely are. One's not better than the other. But the bottom line is you need to help by watching. And where the discrepancy is, and this is what the women are trying to do, is they ended their collective bargaining agreement early because it's an 80-20 swing at the moment. That means the owners get 80% of that entire revenue, and the women only get 20. And I think that's more so what the women have been saying. There's a couple tweets by some of the women. I don't have them on hand, and I apologize. But like with our show, we're not trying to just sit here and have all this research set up and play. We like to do things live. And so I don't have those at the moment. Maybe when the guys start talking, I'll get back to it and I'll find those figures for you people. But basically, the salary discrepancy is massive, but it really comes down to the revenue take. And I think that's what it comes down to is the NBA is about 50%, right? And the WNBA is 80-20. And I think that's what the women really want, is they want that 50-50 partnership. They don't want the 80-20, because they understand at the end of the day, I can't make $20 million. How can I justify that when my league isn't making that kind of money? But I think they want equality. And what equality would be is the collective bargaining agreement being 50-50. Now, something I didn't mention, side note to Justin before Marvin gets in here, is that I don't believe the Sue Bird LeBron thing is comparable, because I don't even think Sue's remotely the best player in that sense. She's an amazing talent, don't get me wrong, but Maya Moore is the best WNBA player of all time already. And the woman has put her career on hold. She did it to help with injustice, and I'd implore you to look more into Maya Moore. I'm not going to go into her philanthropic type thing, what she chose to do, but imagine if LeBron James in the prime of his career, and we can argue it's still now, but imagine if he's 30 years old and he says the racial injustice of society has fret me to my last nerve, and I'm going to get a law degree and I'm going to start fighting for black men and women that are in prison wrongfully. And that's what he did. That's what Maya Moore did, people. That's like literally what she did. And I'm going to throw some stats at you here. She is a 4-time WNBA champion, 2011, 2013, 2015, 2017. She quit in 2018 after she had just won. She was the finals MVP, the MVP of the league, rookie of the year. She's WNBA first athlete every year except her rookie year. She was by far, in my opinion, the prime superstar of the WNBA. I think Sue Bird is incredible. And that's where this is a challenging thing. I personally think Maya Moore is better just because she's like the Jim Brown effect. While she was in the league, she dominated. What I think is incredible about Sue is ever since she left UConn, she's been a star in the WNBA. I picture her to like Lisa Leslie, where she just, for her entire career, she's been phenomenal. And honestly, Hopefully, Justin will probably put a link so you can kind of see those statistics from that LeBron and Sue comparison. Sue's had an incredible career. I mean, no disrespect by that. I think she's easily a top 3 WNBA athlete of all time. Diana Taurasi, another UConn alum, is also in the talking of that, plays for the Mercury. But to me, it's Maya Moore. I'd really love to have some exposure. We might, who knows? We might even talk about her in another episode of The Wire. I think she's just a phenomenal person. They're making a movie about her very soon. Actually, should be out in 2 to 3 years. So you'll probably see a Hollywood dramatized version of her life and what she did. And actually what's kind of crazy is she ended up falling in love with one of the guys. Not exactly the most ethical thing, but she ended up falling in love with one of the guys that was in prison. She got him out of prison and they are getting married. So there is going to be a story about that as well from Maya Moore. But hats off to Maya. Side note on the WNBA as a whole, please watch it, please support it, and at least support the collective bargaining agreement. If you don't, I will strongly always disagree with you when people try to say they deserve tens of millions, because the reality is they're not generating that revenue. And at the end of the day, it's like anything. I don't believe the discrepancy is a glass ceiling in the sense of modern discrepancies of society. It's that the league doesn't generate viewership, and you can change that. This is not a standard workplace environment where I fully believe women are undercompensated. And I do believe the WNBA women are undercompensated, but it's more to the collective bargaining agreement of not having a natural fair trade with the sponsorships. It is not, you cannot compare them to the men, because that is not a fair comparison. It's not, because they're not on equal footing. It'd be different if they work for the same company, people, right? If they work for the same, if Marvin and I work for the same company and Christy worked for the same company with the exact same job, the reality is I would make more than Marvin and I would make more than Christy. And that's a fact. There is discrepancies in life due to race and more specifically gender. But this discrepancy, you can't compare it apples to apples because they're not the same. They're not working for the same companies. The companies don't generate the same revenue. They just happen to be in the same industry. So there's a big difference there. But for any of our viewers, please feel free, message us. We'd gladly bring someone on if you're a huge WNBA fan, or you just strongly disagree with anything I've said, Justin said, or Tony said, or what Marvin's about to say. Marv, what would you like to say?
Yeah, it's sticky waters to get into who deserves what, who deserves more money than who, because I can name a lot of WNBA players that deserve probably a little bit more money than J.R. Smith. I'm going to come out and say that. I don't care. You won't say it, but I will. There's a lot of players that I know that are trash in the NBA, that a lot of WNBA players deserve some more money. So ladies, that's for you out there. Anyhow, Richie, when you mentioned Leslie Parkers of the world, Lisa Leslie, Candace Parker, Maya Moore, Sue Bird, ladies that I feel like we get robbed. We've got robbed. And Richie, you touched on the viewership. The revenue is going to be what it is. They're not going to be equal on the same playing field as the men. But when it comes to major TV networks like ABC, TNT, you would love to see a WNBA game kind of maybe follow up an NBA game. These are like some solutions that they can come up with to improve viewership. Because I just feel when you don't see them enough, you get to this point here where it's so astronomically different. The money, vice versa to NBA players, vice versa to what WNBA players make. So I think there's a huge discrepancy, but at the same time, there's almost nothing you can do to change that other than the viewership. You have to get more people to watch it. There has to be more marketing for the WNBA. You would love to see that more. I think it's a glaring issue. It screams a huge gap. The monetary difference between what these players make. So I think what we're going to see is a continued fight for a level playing field when it comes to women's compensation. Now, is it going to be there? No. But I definitely think the women deserve more than what they're getting. The owners know this. The people at these TV networks know this. They deserve it. So it's going to be a continued fight.
I agree with you. And honestly, side note, I think it's super interesting, particularly now, because what we talked about was attendance ratings, right? Well, guess what? We playing in the bubble, boys. There's no attendance. So I'm really curious to see their logic. And I found the quote from one athlete specifically, Kelsey Plum. She's on the Las Vegas Aces. She put this on Twitter very recently. She said, "I'm tired of people thinking that us players are asking for the same type of money as NBA players. We are asking for the same percentage of revenue shared with our CBA, our collective bargaining agreement. NBA players receive around 50% of the shared revenue. We receive around 20. So I remember seeing something along this lines, and that's what I agree with. They're making 30% less of the entire pie of their league distribution. So that's step one. Step two is I want the NBA to do more. I want them to subsidize more. They subsidize 25 million. ESPN also does a 25 million. So that's 50 million of their 78 million total that they generated. 25 of it came from the NBA, 25 of it came from their ESPN deal. So they need to get more sponsorships, and that's again up to the league to do a better job. These women are incredible. You can't ask them to do any more. They're doing their part. But I think the NBA could do more. Sorry, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's disgusting. They make $7.4 billion and they gave 25 million of it to them, right? Well, why can't they just give 100 million? And then you split that 50-50. Then the average salary would go from $71,000 to $150,000. Just right there, guys. That's some quick math that I just did in my head. And does that hurt the NBA when they make 7.4 billion? Okay, now they made 7.3 billion. Oh no, the horror, right? So I think the NBA should help more. I really think not, and this isn't on ESPN. It's really not. I think ESPN doing 25 mil is more than fair, because let's be realistic, as we talked about, the viewership is low. I think they're doing a good part, but I think it's disgusting that the NBA, which the WNBA is part of, by the way, part of it, isn't doing more. Like 25 million is the same as the network deal. Again, they made 7.4 billion. Are they going to lose money? Yes, they did. They actually lost 1.8 billion this year. We can get to that in another week. But NBA, step your game up, and people, please step your game up. If you like basketball and you watch the NBA and you call yourself a basketball fan, watch the WNBA. They don't have nearly as many games. And quite frankly, that's what makes it kind of fun, is every game really does matter. And it's more akin to the NFL. And I think that's a big draw to the NFL, is you watch every single Steelers game if you're a Steelers fan. Now, most people do not watch all 82 games of the Lakers, right? Well, you can manage a WNBA game, guys. There's not as many. They're also not 12 minutes. They're 10 minutes. You're only watching 40 minutes. You're not watching 48 minutes. They're quicker. It's fast paced. It's worth watching. Give it a try. I really think viewership is a big part of this. It can't always fall to the NBA to subsidize it, but these women deserve a lot more respect, a lot more pay, and honestly, they deserve a lot more marketing opportunities because they're extremely talented. And it's a damn shame, as to Justin's statistics, that you see somebody who's as incredible as Sue Bird, and she makes like, what?
250?
Yeah, like 6% of what LeBron James makes in a single year. If that, I could be wrong. It might be less than that. It might be like 2%. I'm not doing the math right. I'm probably wrong, but it really does suck, guys. That definitely sucks. Does anyone else have anything to say on the WNBA?
Yeah, I wanted to give my thoughts on it. To me, I hate to just always take some kind of opposite side. It's not so much an opposite side. I agree with everything that was said. However, I've watched companies like the WWE break this, and I'll just say it. There is just like racism is like this underlying shadow that people have to even come to terms with for themselves. Sexism is the same thing. And that's why the viewership is down in the first place. So you have to make an effort. You know, a company that did really well with that, the World Wrestling Entertainment Company. They did a great job with the Women's Revolution, bringing it out of making them look like horrors and everything that was, the downtrodden modern view of women that was coming from wrestling before and made them superheroes. And they've made them main card rosters at WrestleMania. They've made them entire Royal Rumble events that have generated huge revenue, and their fan base is through the roof. And you know how they did that? The company itself made the effort. I think that the WNBA or the NBA, if they're the mother company, somebody needs to step up behind the scenes and put this out there and let people know that this is exciting basketball, that it is good sports entertainment, that people should be watching it. But until it's up in someone's face, they're not even going to get a chance to see that it's exciting. You know, I've seen some of the indoor football, companies that televise stuff, and I catch myself watching like whole seasons of it. Like, wow, this is pretty cool. But it's never just in my face. It's not something that I'm going to check out. NFL has always been present in my life. NBA has always been present in my life. I probably was in high school when I found out they had a women's league, and that's just the sad nature of this world that we live in. So you want to make change. It's going to start with the people in the marketing room. I think you have to make a marketing push and get this out there. I mean, change everything if you have to. That's my WWE example. They changed everything. They changed the name of the wrestlers from divas to, or do they, what are they now?
Women's champions.
Women's champions. Yeah. And just the little changes that they made and declaring that we're doing this for equality amongst the sexes, they were highly successful with it. Why can't the WNBA do it?
Yeah, I'll agree and disagree. Here's why I agree. I love the idea, and I agree with this, and I've said this for a long time. Stop differentiating them. Stop trying to say, even their own league has tried to market it. We can do it too, and this, that, and the other. And it's like, you have a different sized basketball and a different weight. Pull that away. These women can play with a standard NBA ball, standard college ball, standard basketball. We all dribbled the same ball when we were children, right? Like young girls playing in high school, they didn't dribble with a lighter basketball. And it's honestly degrading, in my opinion, that they get reduced to using something lesser when, again, they're fully capable. Clarify, I'm 5'6". These women are usually, 6 foot, etc. These are tall women. These are very athletic women. Their hands aren't small. They're completely capable of playing with the exact same basketball. But the league has chosen to put these constraints, so to speak, to differentiate them. And I agree, Justin, the easiest, the marketing perspective they can do is pull that away. I do think in terms of like prime time and things like that, this is where I disagree, is they're not in control of what ESPN, when they choose to put them on. And it's kind of this egg and chicken debate. Because at the end of the day, the network is always going to say, the girls don't draw. We're not going to put them on at 8 o'clock. We're going to put the guys on at 8 o'clock. So that's where it's hard for them as a league. But in my opinion, what they can do is what you said. They can market themselves better, and should be. It should stop being this like, and I don't want to say it as a me too, because it's not, but it needs to stop being, we're women and we can do it too. It's just, we play basketball, we're the WNBA. Like, stop making it about this type of stuff. They are just as talented, period. Use the same damn orange ball. Shouldn't be any different. Whatever the NBA ball is, their ball should be.
And they have to go through all the rigors before they get to the league, if you think about it. I mean, think about it like this. Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and maybe a few other great players you could think of, high school athletes that made it to the NBA. They made it, had great careers. But think how many owners kicked themselves in the asses by throwing money at guys that thought they deserved at the time, that never panned out at all. They were just absolute busts. These women have to go to college all 4 years. I would say all of them, all 4 years. They don't have the option like a Kyrie Irving or an Anthony Davis to be a one and done. They don't do that.
They have to be 22 years old to be drafted.
Right. They have to be 22 years old. So that's something to think. That's something to think about. It makes you think.
LeBron, remember he got in trouble over that Hummer when he was 18.
Yeah. How many women do you see doing that?
Another thing.
I think that.
Oh, sorry. Just real quick. Another thing. even when they get drafted, they're not guaranteed any money. That's not the same for the NBA players, by the way.
No.
Omar,
it's
please.
it's glaring. No, it's just glaring. I just thought that I would throw that out there. That attests to, you know, viewership, because really, I mean, if you see a high school athlete and they say he's the next LeBron James, most likely if he makes the jump to the NBA, you're going to be watching your majority of those games. But you know, women don't have that opportunity, and I just think that is something that they're going to look at. That is very glaring.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think this goes back to what Justin said. The league needs to change its identity. It needs to stop doing these antiquated things. Why can a man be 19 years old and go out and get guaranteed money, but a woman has to wait till she's 22 and she has to get a college? Well, she didn't have to get a college degree, but you get the point. If you're going to play 4 years of basketball, you might as well get the degree. Why wouldn't you? So it's just there's these massive antiquated things. Like, they don't even get guaranteed money, guys. You think about this. You could be as gifted as, say, Zion Williamson, and you could sign a contract, be the first pick in the WNBA, and maybe your contract's worth $170,000, which is a big number. It's unfortunate to say that. $170,000. And you're excited to play, and then you tear your ACL, and you get $0 from the team that drafted you. In the NBA, yeah, you could have taken insurance, but the point being is, in the NBA, that don't happen. In the NBA, I'm Zion Williamson. I get drafted. I get $10 million that first year. I tear my ACL. Well, guess what, buddy? You owe me $10 million because I made the deal. I signed the dotted contract. That's the type of stuff I think we can all agree on that women deserve. They deserve equality. They deserve an opportunity to show their skill. And I think in all facets, the WNBA, the NBA, their marketing, the sponsors, the networks, they all can do a better job on this. I think we could keep talking about this for days, but I think for now, let's table it. I'd love to talk about this down the road. I love that league, and hopefully we have some fans that do too, and we can talk about this at another time. We're going to go with something a little less serious. NBA. We just heard some news recently that they're potentially, instead of playing on MLK Day, they're going to start much sooner, and it's going to be on Christmas Day, and they're going to have a 70-game schedule. So to give you guys an example of that means if you were LeBron James and you just won the championship, you have 2 months to prepare. Your team has 1 month from the NBA Finals where they're going to be drafting a player, and then you have 30 days to sign those rookies and practice in the bubble. It's going to be rough, guys. What do you guys think about this? Do you think 70 games is a good decision? Do you think playing this early? What's your take? Understanding that at the end of the day, it's a business and they're trying to do what they think is best for their business.
I don't think it's a good idea, to be honest with you. I think that they should have commenced the season on Martin Luther King Day, if you ask me, or shortly thereafterward, because like you said, you're just coming off the Los Angeles Lakers are just coming off a championship win. This whole league is coming off a different transition, coming from the bubble back to still uncertainty, because we don't know the capacity of these arenas and how many fans are going to let in. Because I mean, the NFL has started doing it, but being indoors during the winter time is a different beast. And the NBA they did a great job with the bubble. I'm pretty sure Adam Silver is thinking of ways he can get fans into stadiums. I'm thinking this could happen, but I just don't agree that they should have started it this early. I felt like, you should give teams an opportunity to look at rookies even furthermore than just 30 days. That's just not enough time. You're kind of squeezing this season. I feel like you're just kind of squeezing it in. That's just how I feel.
Sure.
I mean, I agree with you, Marvin. It seems a little rushed, and it's funny because in today's age of coronavirus that we live in, it seems like everything gets pushed back. And you think that you would have allowed for a little bit of recovery, but maybe they want to start sooner so that way they can end earlier. I don't know. Maybe they don't want to compete against the NFL, during the start of the NFL next season. I honestly don't know how it benefits the league unless, it comes down to money. But in reality, you're still going to make money if you were to just start it, 16 days, 16.5, whatever. It's 21 days later. I don't see the point of starting the league sooner, me personally. I'd like to hear if there's actually some good evidence on why they should start it, because I would rather them have a little bit more time to themselves to be able to recover and to have some time with their family. Otherwise, they're going to go back into this bubble where they're not going to be able to have that time if they have the regulations like they had last time.
Tony, you've got your reason. You said it. It's 100% about the money, in my opinion. I think that this is the same dumb shit that the NFL is pulling. I think the short time off the court is simply about they found a way to make money off of getting this into the viewers and keeping things afloat because they've lost that ticket count. So they're trying to recover, and they're just putting their athletes at a greater risk, just like we're seeing the NFL do. I think it's absurd. These guys just got back to their families after being locked away so that the NBA could put on the finals. And I know, like we've all said with the NFL, and we talked about this on the last episode of The Wire about, we love to watch this, but at what cost, at what expense? If they can maintain the bubble and not get anybody COVID, you're still overexerting professional athletes who pour their entire life into their bodies. They can't afford to be overexerted. You're taking years off their careers. You're taking years off their lives. You're taking years of them from their families. And you're putting them at risk for COVID because, let's be honest, it's up spiking again, just like they thought it would in October. People are going to be home. I think that's what this is about. People are going to get locked down again. People are going to be home. It's about the money.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I'm not going to go too much into it because I feel like you hit everything. I'm shocked they're going to do this many games. I'm a little disappointed at Adam Silver. I think it's because he saw how much they lost $1.8 billion this year that he's really adamant on trying to sustain the lifestyle for all the guys and that they're all going to have to take a hit for this. But what I really would have liked is for them to have more of a discussion on if these guys wanted to do that, right? Were they willing to say, hey, we'll take a little less money. I don't need 40 million. I'll take 30, right? Or I'll take 20. So I don't have to endanger my family to the same length of time. But again, that's not for me or us to know. So we'll move on from that. Other than I agree. I think they're doing too much. I think they're putting each other and their lives at stake. I think it's not enough time to get the organizations ready for the next season. Like if you're the LA Lakers, you're in great shape, except for the fact that now you're all tired, right? If you're a team like the Warriors, who haven't played at all, have 4 All-Stars, about to trade one, so who knows? They might be the best team in the league just because they're going to get to do a trade and they're all healthy and they haven't played for 6 months. Whereas, that hasn't been the case for the Lakers and the Heat and etc. So we'll have to just move on with life. We'll discuss this at another time. The NBA isn't going anywhere because clearly we're going to be talking about it in 6 weeks. So we'll hit it up. We're going to do a commercial and we'll get back to you guys. You are listening to The Wire. Stay tuned.
Are you tired of the mundane one subject, one point of view podcast? Have you been searching for a show that combines comedy, games, current events, and hot new up-and-coming artists? Well, look no further. The H2G podcast has everything you need to start your week out right. So what are you waiting for? Stream previous seasons now at h2gpodcast.com. The H2G Podcast, Mondays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Available at all social media platforms near you.
And welcome back, folks. We are in the NFL. First topic I wanted to hit was Antonio Brown, guys. We talked about AB before. It was an interesting time. He's been an interesting character, so to speak. But let's be honest. Antonio Brown was a hot commodity. I did not expect him to get as much opportunities as he did. I was expecting maybe 1 or 2 teams to take a chance on him, but we're talking about 2 potential Super Bowl contenders that were the highlight. We don't even know all of them, but we do know that the Buccaneers and the Seahawks are both chasing him hard. He ended up going to Tampa Bay. And I'm just going to lead off the conversation myself. I really expected him to go to Seattle. Tony and I talked about this off the air. I really thought he's such a selfish person. I think we can all agree. We don't need to get into that. But he's a selfish person. He wants the ball. And to me, who's balling right now? I mean, come on, Russell. Russell Wilson is insane. And he doesn't have the weapon. He's carrying that team. So to me, I thought it was like a match made in heaven for Antonio Brown's brain, that he was like, I'm going to get all these touchdowns and all these statistics. And he chose to go to Tampa Bay, where clearly he has a great relationship with Tom Brady, because Tom Brady was at bat for him. And let's just say Bruce Arians at the beginning of the year said, no way in hell Antonio Brown's coming here. Well, guess what, Bruce? You're not the GM, and you're certainly not the owner, because Antonio Brown is on the Buccaneers. I did not see him going to a team that had 2 number 1 wide receivers already. He's going to have to be willing to Keyshawn Johnson and not just get the damn ball and be one of 3 options. So let's talk about briefly his contract, and then I'll let you guys run the floor with this. It's for at maximum $2.5 million. $750,000 would be a bonus for a Super Bowl win, and 3 $250,000 bonuses for receptions, yards, and touchdowns. So he's only getting guaranteed $1 million. The rest of it is very incentive based. So this is a very safe contract for Tampa Bay, let's be honest. The only question is it safe? Because will Antonio disrupt the team's chemistry? So let's lead it off, guys. Would anyone like to mention this whole Antonio thing? What's your thoughts on people willing to take a chance? What's your thoughts on him going to Tampa Bay specifically with Tom Brady? And do you think this is a good move for Antonio Brown?
I think it's a good move for Antonio Brown, but there's always a but there, right? There's always a but. And I didn't think it was a good fit in Seattle, because I think Antonio Brown knew that DK Metcalf was there. And DK Metcalf, to his teammates, has been compared to the next Megatron. And if you folks out there don't know who Megatron is, it's Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson and DK Metcalf are very similar right now, especially DK Metcalf's level of play. So it was very understandable why Antonio Brown wouldn't have been able to really insert himself into that system, because you had Tyler Lockett there, David Moore, and plus the Seahawks offense works around spreading the ball out to everybody. That's what Russell Wilson does. And he throws a touchdown to guys you've never heard of, kind of like Aaron Rodgers. But I think that it's a good fit with Tampa Bay. I was actually shocked, because I didn't think Antonio Brown would be playing football this year. I thought that even after Bruce Arians had said at the beginning of the year that we don't need him, and I was looking at their offense and their weapons when you saw Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, who's injured now, Rob Gronkowski, they had Ronald Jones. They had Scotty Miller, which has become a favorite target of Tom Brady's. I was thinking, Bruce Arians is right. Antonio Brown probably not going to be able to fit into this system. And Bruce Arians said something really interesting this past weekend. He said to Antonio Brown in the signing, be a player or go home. And that is probably the most important thing that could have been said to Antonio Brown, because this is his last chance at bat. This is his second strike. If it does not work here in Tampa Bay, it's over for Antonio Brown. There's nowhere else that I would feel that he would be able to convince that he's a changed guy, because really what it comes down to is the locker room. Antonio Brown is going to have to accept that you have 2 budding stars and a Chris Godwin and a Mike Evans, that you are not the number 1 option in that offense. And plus, it comes down to chemistry. They're really rolling the dice on a guy who is coming from 2 different franchises, 3 different franchises, excuse me, 3, and has seemed to become either a locker room problem and have a bunch of problems off the field. Now, I know that Deion Sanders has been working with Antonio Brown for the longest, and he's gone to bat for him, and hopefully he's right. But if we see anything in what Antonio Brown used to be. If he is focused, if his mind is on football and not being a knucklehead, he's going to contribute well to this offense. And they're definitely a Super Bowl contender. If they weren't before this, they definitely are now.
So everyone knows that I'm pretty biased on this opinion, or this topic, I should say, that deals with Antonio Brown. First off, I have to retract that I said that he never, ever would play in the NFL again because no team would ever take the chance. Well, guess what, fam? I was wrong. Someone did take a chance. And the Glazer family, which they own the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, did me the best thing this past week by signing Antonio Brown. Because they're looking at the dessert right now and it's got all kinds of sugar and the fudge looks real good on top and it's got a cherry and everything looks good. But when you start to cut into that dessert, you're gonna find that it's stale as shit. Because Antonio Brown does one thing and one thing only. He is a disruptor of teams. That's exactly what's gonna happen to Tampa Bay. I'm so happy. Your team was probably on the verge of making the playoffs and winning the Super Bowl, but because Antonio Brown is a productive, talented player, you think it's going to get you somewhere. Well, let me tell you, the Steelers had AB, Le'Veon Bell, Ben Roethlisberger, and played for a great organization in the Pittsburgh Steelers, which are known to win championships. Did they win a Super Bowl? No, they did not win a Super Bowl. Actually, they were probably top 3 offense for those 3 years that they were supposed to go to the Super Bowl. They were Super Bowl contenders that didn't even make it out of the first round of the playoffs. You're caught up. You see the light. You think it's going to be great. It's not. I hope Antonio Brown proves me wrong because Marvin Scott said the right thing. Antonio Brown, this is your last chance. A lot of people don't get it. A lot of people don't get a lot of chances. You had 1, 2, 3. You had 3 chances. This is your 4th chance. If you mess this up, it's all on you. But guess what? It's always been all on you the whole time. You're lucky you're talented enough that people actually want to give you a chance because a lot of people don't even get that chance to play in the National Football League. That's all I really got to say.
Justin, how about you before I comment?
Man, oh man. Yeah, AB never broke my heart. I was much more heartbroken with the retirements that we had. Le'Veon Bell was a little bit surprising. AB, I'm not going to say that he's not a good player. He's a great player. He's a downfield threat. He's an absolute athlete, but he's always been a problem in the locker room. And this just brings my brain back to when I'm sitting in high school watching Terrell Owens and Chad Ochocinco make an ass of themselves in their private lives. And there's one big difference here. I couldn't argue that those guys had some ground to stand on being this hot commodity amongst the NFL. AB has slipped from that, and then he made, 3 franchises just say, we can't take it anymore. We can't deal with this guy anymore. He's not producing enough for this much stress. Yeah, TB12 standing up for him. Maybe they've got a connection together. I don't know. Maybe they can give each other anger counseling and less people will be screamed at on the sidelines. I don't know. But in my opinion, it's a terrible investment. I get it's a safe contract, but I wish that these guys that he was never, in my opinion, and this may be bold, he was never as good as Terrell Owens. He was never as good as Chad Ochocinco. And, I could be wrong, but that's my opinion. And they did terrible things that pissed me off too.
All I gotta say is, how many rings does Ochocinco have? How many rings does T.O. have?
It's the common denominator.
How many rings does Randy Moss have?
To his defense, he could have had a ring. but the New York Giants had something to say about it during an undefeated season. So that's not all Randy Moss's fault. I understand. But that's a great point. But I mean, like you just said, superstar wide receivers that bounced around from team to team. And you don't really see that. You don't really see success come out of nowhere, especially with a situation like this. Richie, go ahead, man.
Well, I think this is a challenging subject. I feel like there's some clear bias, so I'm going to be a little more neutral here. What I'll say is Antonio Brown is one of the best 6th-round picks I've ever seen in my entire life. People seem to forget that. He was a 6th-round pick, and outside of Julio Jones and one could argue AJ Green at the time, Antonio was right up there with those guys. Like genuinely, where Antonio's shown is he actually had more touchdowns than them. So a lot of people would be like, oh, Antonio Brown's better than them. I never agreed. I think he was a really good slot receiver that was like incredible athlete that would stretch yards. But in terms of pure catcher of the ball, he's not AJ Green's old this year, but he's not the AJ Green and the Julio Jones of the world. He's really not. He's an incredible athlete. I honestly think Antonio is like anything, and we're going to get into it later, guys. This is actually going to be more of a Pittsburgh Steelers kind of episode. As a Bengals fan, it's hard to say that. But Antonio is what I would say for Pittsburgh. It doesn't really matter to them because, and we'll get into that later, but I would say, why not give him a chance if you're Seattle and you're Tampa? I'm a little surprised, as I've said, because I agree with you, Marvin. Seattle, it could have been a hard top dog thing, but it just, dude, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are beasts as a side note. So that's why I was shocked. You got two dudes that are like 1,300 yard guys last season, and he's like, I'm going to compete with them. Not that he's not capable. I don't mean it that way, but it's just like you already had two absolute studs. And I agree with you, Marv. Like the Seahawks spread the ball so much, and maybe that's where you're getting at it. But I also feel Tampa's kind of similar, right? Like look at Gronkowski. He hasn't even gotten the opportunity to make catches, even though historically Arians is a tight end heavy offense, and Tom Brady loves him. But the bottom line is, I'll give Bruce Arians his due. He's got the greatest quarterback of all time, and he's telling him, this is what you're going to do. And Tom is falling in line. He's not playing Tom Brady football. He's not doing an Aaron Rodgers, like, screw you, Mike McCarthy, I'm going to call the play. He's listening to his coach, and he's spreading and distributing the ball. So having Antonio Brown, it's pretty much a hardly likely success story against Tony's point. I think the only way it doesn't go well is to Tony's point. If that cancerous locker room thing, that a la Terrell Owens comes into play, then maybe that's where Tampa Bay goes down the hill. It's really early to say. I'll say this much. I think we all here at H2G did not anticipate he would be so coveted. I think that's what shocked us all. I was surprised. Like when I heard Seattle was going for it, I was like, okay, fine. And then when I heard Tampa was going for it, I was like, wait a second. There were 5 teams. It was undisclosed who the other 3 were. 5 teams were after this guy because he's able to play now. And I didn't see that coming. So we could talk about Antonio all day. So we're actually going to swap it up. Tony, you're going to give us kind of a little breakdown of what's been going on in the league. So why don't we talk about some league leaders and some of the games that happened?
Yeah, sure. Before I do that, the Ravens were one of those teams that were looking at picking up Antonio Brown, but the Seahawks were originally the first team to pick up Antonio Brown. This was talked about well before even the league started, that they would potentially go after Antonio Brown, the Seahawks. And then I'm glad he didn't go to the Ravens because obviously I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And then there was also talk about him going to the Saints because everyone knows the Saints have had a lackluster year with keeping their wide receiver healthy. So moving on. So we got some recap of what happened over the weekend, and I'm just going to point out some of the key games and some key things, and then we'll get a little bit of feedback from the fellas. So my key game of the week was Cleveland versus Cincinnati, because that was a hell of a game. Cleveland Browns inched it out at 37, the Cincinnati Bengals at 34, so they won by 3 points. A lot of stuff happened in that game. Obviously, cannot talk about football without talking about Dallas getting whooped by the Washington team, 25-3. A lot of things going on in Dallas. Marvin and I kind of alluded to that game and how. Go ahead.
Correction, Tony. The Dallas football team versus the Washington football team, or the Dallas team. Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm.
My bad.
Because football, we can't put any football anywhere towards the Cowboys, anywhere near the.
And like he said someone's getting fired in Dallas here coming up. Something interesting, New England gets throttled by the San Francisco 49ers 33-6. And if you didn't know, Cam Newton was pulled during that game. So that's something that's quite interesting. For that Cleveland Browns game, it is notable that Odell suffered a major knee injury. So we're going to have to get a little bit more information about how that ended up. Another game was the Philadelphia Eagles beating the Giants 22-21. That division, they just make me laugh. Washington could actually come out and actually end up going to the playoffs with how bad these teams are right now. I can't even put everything
historically bad.
I don't even know what to say. Another big thing that I wanted to talk about was Aaron Rodgers having a comeback game after his game that he had against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Green Bay got 35 versus the Houston Texans 20. But hey, what do you all think about this week? Oh, I didn't even mention the Pittsburgh Steelers was trying to throw away their game against the Titans. They went up big early and they almost ended up losing. If it wasn't for a missed field goal, that score was 27 Pittsburgh, the Titans 24.
Yeah. Quick thing. I'm going to say, I honestly am going to echo Chamber. I think it was in the Cincinnati-Cleveland game, 5 go-ahead touchdown passes in the fourth quarter alone. That's the first time in NFL history that's happened. Side note, Myles Garrett, he's at 9 sacks in 9 sacks already. Myles Garrett is a beast. And people were questioning that contract. They were questioning that contract. Myles Garrett saying, all right, I'll show you what's up, man. Aaron Donald, I'm coming for that top spot. Myles Garrett was incredible. But to me, the game of the week is Pittsburgh. But side note to the Pittsburgh game, even though I agree with you, they basically front-runned it. And if they didn't front-run it so much and start off hot, they were losing that game. Thank God that field goal was missed if you're a Steelers fan, because if that would have tied and they went to overtime, they were losing that game. But funny thing to say, what are the teams that have more wins than the Cleveland Browns, guys? Anyone know?
What teams have more wins than the Cleveland Browns?
What teams have more wins than the Cleveland Browns?
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay.
I think that's it. I think that's it in the AFC, man.
Yeah, I am not a Cleveland Brown fan. I'm a Bengals fan. Of all the teams in the AFC North, I hate the Browns the most. But let's give them some recognition. Outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are undefeated right now, they have the most wins in the league. Now, obviously, there are other teams with 5 wins, but we got to stop with this narrative that Cleveland's not a good team. They would have to literally lose they're 5-2, guys. They're a good team. I don't like the quarterback personally, but let me give him some due. After starting 0-5, I think he went 20 for 21 and had 20 for 22, and had 5 passing touchdowns. You know what, Baker, you played your ass off that game. So even though that was, to me, the most exciting game of the week, I'm going to give it to Pittsburgh because they've solidified they're 6-0. To me, they're the surprise team of the year. I did not expect them to be ahead of the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC. I never saw that one coming. So kudos to Pittsburgh.
I mean, by record.
Oh, by record. I'm not saying they're the best team in the league.
By record. The Kansas City Chiefs are still the teams to beat. And the Steelers have to prove that before I can jump on that fully 100.
Yeah. We finally get a week where Richie's on board with Pittsburgh, and I'm over here thinking back to week 1 of season 1 of The Wire. They've not been playing full through. They've been playing good football. There's good things. There's great things happening, but there's dumb things like 3 interceptions happening in the back half of the game. They're and this is something that we've seen from Ben before. I've defended Ben on here a lot, but if you know me personally or ever watched the game with me, I'm the first to talk smack on the guy because I feel like under pressure sometimes he just loses all this momentum that we build. And it's not always him. You can't blame one guy, but as a team, there's a lot of mistakes happening, and the NFC is just, it's like when we were talking NBA, it's just better over there for whatever reason. On that side of the country, football's better. So if you're going to be, a contender just based on your record, beating all the people you're beating out, play better football from beginning to end, I think, because there's so many moments in these games that could have made them go the other way. They're not knockdown victories, not any of the 6 of them.
Well, I'm gonna have to disagree with Richie here on the Browns and the Bengals being the most exciting game of the week. And I appreciate you, Richie, trying to take up for the Browns, but it's a nice attempt. But I'm gonna tell y'all this.
Tony.
That was me, Marvin. That was me.
Oh, that was you, Tony. That hyped up the Browns. Well, that wasn't you, Richie. That wasn't you.
No,
I
just said they had a great game. I said Pittsburgh was the game.
Well, you said don't look at them like they're not a great team now. I think that's what you said. Is that what you said?
I was saying that they are a great team. People need to stop looking at them.
See, that's where I'm going to stop you right there. They are not a great team. Correction. Over the summer, I said, yeah, they're a good team, but they are an underachieving team, and they still are. They show you so many moments that they're fraudulent. From the beginning of the game, Baker Mayfield was 0 for 5 in an interception, did not pass the ball at all, was afraid, was going up against the Bengals secondary. I think you, Justin, me, or you, Richie, could have got hot at quarterback at that moment against the Bengals secondary, because most teams have been able to abuse their defense all year. So I will not give the Browns credit until week in and week out they can start to show some consistency, because their defense and their run game is what keep them in the game, is what keeps Baker Mayfield in the game. Let's not forget last week he was benched for Case Keenum. He was benched for Case Keenum.
Guy, fire.
He was benched for Case Keenum.
Marv, here's what I'll say. I'm not going to disagree with all of your. He
still played the game. He started the game. If you were that hurt from the beginning, and Baker Mayfield knew this, he still came out, played anyway, and still wet the bed. Came in this week, talk trash to reporters like he usually does. And I was so disappointed, Richie, after the game to find out that he was dancing in the locker room. Okay, let's bookmark this week. Let's bookmark it, because next week we're going to see exactly what Baker Mayfield is going to do. The week after, we're going to see, because the Steelers are still the best team, hands down, in that division. The Ravens are still a better team than the Browns in that division, and the Browns still have more to do to prove themselves that they are actually worthy of a playoff conversation. Now, we all know who's not worthy of a playoff conversation: the Dallas Cowboys. And like I said before this segment started, somebody, Richie, Tony, Justin, is going to get fired. Somebody is going to lose their job.
One of us is getting fired.
I mean, some of us, one of us might be hot. I'm coming from everybody. Because they are called the America's team. For what reason, y'all? For what reason? For what reason are they called America's team? They are, like Tony said, a historically horrible division. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen anything like it. I think the Washington football team can come out and make the playoffs. Somebody take over. I can't.
I'm going to take over.
Hold on. I got two things to say, Richie. I really apologize. Can you hold on for just a second? Okay. So the Dallas Cowboys are called the American team because they're just like America. Okay. They're divided and they don't have great management. Okay, so that's it.
That's the best analogy.
It's the best analogy. Yeah, they are America's team. They truly are.
Yeah. Number two, if you were going into, a audition and you wanted this gig, like you had to do it, and you were sick, Marvin, your stomach hurt, you would still go to that audition, right? Because you knew that you had to get this, right?
I would.
You would, okay.
I would.
Baker Mayfield was hurt going into the Pittsburgh Steelers game and Cleveland Browns, but he knew that this was a very important game because at that time they were two top dogs. I agree with you. If you were that hurt, then don't play. But he was competitive, and his competitive nature, he wanted to actually make it a game. He wanted to win to show that the Browns were better than the Steelers. We know the outcome, we know the outcome, they weren't. And that's why he got benched for that point, to your point on that part, okay? And then the last thing that I want to say is that, Justo, you were talking about Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger is a great quarterback if he's not forcing the ball. Actually, I could say that about any quarterback, right? But in reality, he didn't throw interceptions the whole time till this point. You saw him trying to rush stuff. He was trying to make things happen, and he really didn't need to make things happen. He just needs to throw to who's ever open. He's trying to throw it to Juju like he used to throw to AB. Well, AB will come down with the ball, and you get an interception. Do what you know how to do. You manage the game, and you'll be a good enough quarterback to win the game, okay? They do look crappy. They do look shitty. But in the end, they won the game. And that's the same with the Browns. It was against the Bengals, but guess what? They still won the game. A win is a win no matter what in the NFL.
I'm just saying, show me something before I see any more progressive commercials or any more dancing in the locker room. That's what I want to see.
I got you. And
that's what I want to see, because the Steelers are a proven franchise, Richie. I mean, Tony, you just said that. They are proven. Even if they take, it seems as if they're taking a quarter or two off. Their defense doesn't leave consistency. It just seems as if the Steelers have found that curtain again. They have found that steel. I can confidently say the Steelers have got that steel curtain once again. And it's not to say a win is not a win, y'all. I'm just saying that I would like to see more consistency, because Baker Mayfield has been a problem in that offense. There's no denying that. From what we have seen over the last few weeks, Odell Beckham has almost as if put himself on the trade block because he's not sure of his quarterback, and having uncertainty of your quarterback is not good going into the postseason as we get closer to it. I just don't think that they're ready.
Okay, well, now I'm going to talk. So, I agree with what you said, Marvin, except for one thing. Yeah, Baker Mayfield is a problem for the team. That doesn't make the team a bad team. They're the number one team in rushing, as to your point. And they have a great defense, which you said is carrying them. Now, let's also clarify this. They're not the Pittsburgh Steelers, and quite frankly, they're not even the Baltimore Ravens. But the AFC North is pretty stacked, right? All three of these teams are good teams. And Cleveland will, at this rate, make a wild card team. Now, in my opinion, you can't fix Baker Mayfield. We talked about this off the air. So for those of you on the air in the wire, Marvin and I kind of had a talk about Baker. I don't believe in Baker. I don't think he's ever going to be a perennial Pro Bowler. Marvin said he's kind of like Brett Favre, and I agree. He's like a bad version of Brett Favre in that he's super confident and he's willing to take risks, and that's great, but he doesn't have the arm to do it. I think also clearly Marvin doesn't like the shenanigans involved with him. I don't really care. That doesn't matter. I think where Cleveland is lacking is not just the quarterback. I think it's their defense. Now, their defense isn't bad, but let's give you an example. Pittsburgh Steelers have 24 sacks. Baltimore Ravens have 22 sacks. Cleveland has, I think, 16, and 9 of them are from Myles Garrett, okay? Myles Garrett is carrying that team, literally, on his fucking back. 9 of them out of the 14 are from Myles Garrett. And Cleveland, long-term, can be a great team. If you have a good defense and you're a rushing team, you don't need a quarterback. Now, what's unfortunate, and maybe to what Marvin seems a little disdained about, is you got Odell Beckham Jr., you got Jarvis Landry, and you can't do more with it. Like, if you look at their offense, they should be like Baltimore and like Pittsburgh in the sense of they should be dominating. And I think that's probably where Marvin's probably annoyed. They should be dominating, but to me, like letting the Bengals score that many points, it's like, that's kind of my point. Cleveland isn't Pittsburgh and they're not Baltimore. They don't have that good of a defense. They're a good defense. They're a top 12 defense, but they're not like elite yet on their defensive side of things. And when you at least take into factoring who we know their quarterback is we can't expect them to be at Ben Roethlisberger's level. And as a matter of fact, I feel like you're giving homeboy a little bit too hard of a smack, because to me, I'm more disappointed with Jackson of Baltimore. I feel like he's massively regressed. And when you look at that team, well, that team should be dominating, but he has taken massive steps back. Now, Baker is where Baker's always going to be, in my opinion, which is mediocrity. And he's got 2 superstar wide receivers, and he's still mediocre. And maybe that's to Marvin's point. It seems like he's a Browns fan. I didn't know that, but it looks like it. But
it's hard. It's hard, Richie. It's hard over a course of a lifetime to be a Browns fan. Justin and Tony don't have to experience.
I'm a Bengals fan, my friend.
They don't have to experience decades and decades of ineptitude. They don't have to go through that. They might have a year or two where they're not in it, but they're still aiming for 7 championships. And I've been confused with what the Browns have been aiming for, Richie. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that, Myles Garrett is doing a phenomenal job. He's doing a great job. The only thing is, like, you worry also in this division about the Ravens because they're putting too much weight on Lamar Jackson.
Sure.
And I feel Mark Ingram being on the wrong side of 32. I feel as if, like, you're right, Richie, the Browns can get that wild card spot.
Yeah, I feel like, again, they're my least favorite team. I'll say it right now, Cleveland Browns least favorite team. I always hope them to do horribly, but I see where they're at. And with Nick Chubb being injured, I did not expect them to be where they're still at. And I truly believe if they can it's about organization. If they can get the right leaders in the right place, I'd rather be the Cleveland Browns than most of the teams in the league right now. They have the again, we can talk about the Steelers and we're about to. They have a lot of incredible tools, but in my opinion, when they signed Myles Garrett, and you guys know how much I defended that, Myles Garrett is the future of the league, man. He is a machine. And other than Aaron Donald, there's not a guy in this league I'd rather have. Now, they're different players. One's a tackle, one's an end, right? But Myles Garrett is incredible, and Nick Chubb is a stud. And honestly, Jarvis Landry is Odell Beckham Jr. without all the BS. He doesn't have that drama. And when they were both leaving LSU, everyone thought Landry was the better pick, and he was going to be the better player. It's just Odell has just shown in the Giants. Landry's incredible. He's playing incredible. Now, unfortunately for Odell, he's not playing great, and I attribute it to the quarterback. But the bottom line is they have perennial studs, and I think their stock is super high. But unfortunately, we've been talking way too long at this point. Let's get into our last topic. I want to talk about
one quick thing before we move on to the NFL. To your point, Marvin, I have this clip for you guys here.
Hey, Browns. Mike Polk, season ticket holder. Killer game in Houston today.
Well, thank God we built you. What a blessing for the community.
You are wasting valuable space on our majestic shoreline, and what do we get out of it from you? 10 miserable games a year, including 2 preseason games that I have to pay for, and 1 shitty Kenny Chesney concert. Do you understand that it is actually statistically harder for a team to be this consistently bad than it is for them to occasionally accidentally be good? The probability is staggering. Did you happen to see that Packers-Chargers game today? It's like they're playing a different sport than you are. And here's what you have to understand. We don't even expect you to be good. We just want you to be watchable. Do you have any idea how low our expectations are? We don't expect you to win the Super Bowl. We just want you to look better than a Division III high school team. And listen, I know that there are way more important things in life than football, but you are supposed to be our pleasant distraction from those things. But all we do is pay you money to put us in a bad mood every week. You are a factory of sadness! I'll see you Sunday.
So, last topic. Won't have too much to talk about it. We talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers being 6-0, but I want to talk about the Antonio Brown into the Steelers. One of the things I think they've always done incredible in our generation, not historically, but in our generation is, man, have they drafted wide receivers or what? Let's just go through a list real quick, okay? And we're not talking top picks, things like that. This is why they're great. This is why, in my opinion, they've been able to be relevant. The moment they got Ben, they knew what to focus on. And they grabbed Mike Wallace in the 3rd round, 2009. Emmanuel Sanders in the 3rd round, 2010. Antonio Brown in the same year, in the 6th round, right? It's just been crazy. Martavius Bennett was in the 4th round in 2014. We honestly, when we need to talk about what I think they are, is they're a system. It's not that these guys are that incredible. They're system wide receivers. Look at Hines Ward. In my opinion, the epitome of a system wide receiver. When you look at like he was competing with was his contemporaries, he did it. He had a great career. I'm not saying anything diminishing about that, but would he be the player he was if he wasn't in Pittsburgh? To me, I say absolutely not. And I think Mike Wallace was another prime example of everyone thought that dude was going to be insane. He goes to Miami because Pittsburgh said, we ain't paying him that much. And what happens? He becomes nothing. They have an incredible way of not only finding who fits their system, but finding talented players. And I just wanted to throw something quick out, and then I'll let you guys kind of hit the field with this. One of the things I thought was crazy was Tony mentioned it in terms of the Super Bowl. The Steelers had Hines Ward, Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown, and Emmanuel Sanders in the same year. And they compete, and with Antoine Randall. And they actually played in the Super Bowl against the Packers, who had Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson, and James Jones. Man, you want to talk about a crazy offensive Super Bowl. That was one of my favorite Super Bowls. And again, I'm not a Pittsburgh fan. I wasn't excited they lost, but it was just to see all that talent at wide receiver, just all those guys just going out there and balling, man. And it's crazy. And I think that's one of the things I commend Pittsburgh on is they're always known for the defense, but in my opinion, over Ben's career, they've mostly been, they kind of pivoted. They saw Ben, they knew what to do, and they focused on offense. Now, they had great defenses in the early 2000s to the late, but this last decade, it's mostly been like offensive juggernaut, and then that's where they've lived and died on. And I think a lot of that has to go to their general management and their management as a whole, and understanding of having a talent of Ben Roethlisberger, who we've talked off the air that I don't think he's the best, but he's an incredible quarterback, and finding ways to get tools around him and not using first round picks to do it. We're talking third or later. They almost never used first round picks to make sure Ben was successful. So, man, you talk about upper management as Tony did with the Cowboys. I think that's where Pittsburgh gets its due. The organization itself is known for winning. Now, predominantly, their devastation was in the 70s, but the bottom line is they've always been relevant and they've always been credible. And to me, it's because they know what to draft and where to draft. But man, what a machine! What a wide receiver machine! They've had some of the best wide receiver production I've seen in 20 years. Now, I don't think those wide receivers were the best in football, as I mentioned, but outside of Antonio, they've just found ways to be successful, and they're doing it again. You got Juju, and I can't even remember the new white kid. I know Justin's all hype about him, but the point being is they've got talents, and they always find talent, and they always know how to use it. And kudos to that organization. They are 6-0. It has been a while since Pittsburgh's been on the top of the mountain, so to speak. Now, it's still early. They're still not my favorite, obviously, but I wanted to give them a quick shout out because I did not see them going 6-0. I really expected them to be a 5-2 type team, or 4-2 at this point, whatever you want to call it, with the bye. That wasn't their fault. But good job on that team. Anyone got some Pittsburgh thought? I know we have two Pittsburgh guys, but what do you guys think? Pittsburgh 2020.
Callaway.
Thank
His
you.
name.
What's his name?
I think it's Callaway. Am I wrong?
I mean, Chase Claypool.
Claypool, that's what it was.
Yeah.
It's a C. And it ends with
You're doing with something. Think about it like this, guys.
L.
And for all of you out there, man is 6'4", runs a 4'2". That is the next big thing in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
I agree. He's a bad boy, and that's sad.
And
I love
where
Juju.
do you find a guy like this?
Juju, but they always find him.
Second round, that's where they found him. They found him in the second round, where teams passed him twice. Some teams passed him twice. Now think about it like this. 22 picks in the last 20 years have been wide receivers, okay? That means that they, on average, have drafted a wide receiver every single draft. So you could think, oh, that's not that big of a deal. There's so many different positions, okay? In fact, there's 22 different positions, right? Plus the kicker and the punter that you're not even thinking about, or the long snapper, or the holder, or whatever. There's so many different positions. So you only get 7 picks unless you gave some picks away. So they absolutely, I can tell you what Pittsburgh Steelers are going to draft next season. I can tell you right now, okay? First round's going to be defense. I guarantee it. It's going to be a linebacker or it's going to be a defensive end. It might be a safety, but probably not unless they don't sign Minka. But they do what they do, and that's what it is. The second, third, and fourth round picks will be wide receivers. One of those picks will be a wide receiver. That's just what they do. They find that one dark horse that people just overlooked, and then somehow they put them in this system, and then in this system they thrive.
They build from the inside out.
Antoine Randall was a quarterback in college and was a successful wide receiver. Hines Ward was a quarterback in college and was a successful wide receiver. Probably one of the best wide receivers known in Pittsburgh. Claypool is going to be a mix between Megatron and Hines Ward because I just see him smiling and he's got that And Juju, if Juju keeps doing what Juju's doing, he's not AB. They have to take him off that pedestal. There won't be an AB for a while, okay? Just for a while. That's just the nature of the game. Talents come and go. Tom Brady was a 6th round pick. So AB's a 6th round pick. It doesn't happen all the time. Okay, it takes time for it to develop. But I'm telling you, this Claypool kid, watch out.
I agree. Claypool, to me, how I was gushing over Myles Garrett, I do feel the same way about Claypool. He's a different beast, same animal. I don't know how else to say it. He's a physical. He's got all the physical attributes people wish they could have in the NFL. And like Megatron was kind of a way to describe it. He's just 6'4". He's a monster and he's fast as hell, man. And as long as he keeps his head on and, hopefully goes the Juju route, because that's one of the things I've always been impressed about Juju is just like his humility, right? When he got drafted and the message he sent to Antonio Brown. And I don't think like you said, you're not gonna have an AB with Juju. And that's why I root for that kid. I like that kid a lot. And again, a big Steelers hater, but I like Juju and Claypool. I'm trying to think of if there's a 1-2 punch I've seen like that in a long time. And it could be pretty nasty. It really could be pretty nasty. And I'm looking forward to seeing what ends up happening long term, because I think Juju's just kind of in a rut, but it doesn't really matter because they're playing well and Juju's good with it. And he said it right multiple times. And Claypool, let's be realistic here, is also getting opportunities because Juju's technically the dog. It's the same thing that Juju was getting when Antonio was there. And that's what always happens when you have the Steelers is you always have that 1A guy and then the 1B guy looks like $1 million and eventually the 1A guy gets left because the Steelers feel like, I got Claypool, I don't need you. I'm not going to pay you $20 million a year. Go. And they always find a way to do that. So I do think Claypool's a different beast, though, as Tony mentioned. I think you got to play Claypool. $22 million, man, take it. That guy, I think he's the next Julio Jones in the sense of being how dominant of a stretch Julio's had. Julio's so underrated. He doesn't have the touchdowns, so people don't look at him. But Julio's led the league in receiving yards 5 out of the 9 years he's been in the league. He's averaged 1,400 yards in his career or something. It's crazy. And I think Claypool's that type of guy where I think he could be that top dog. I really do think he could be the top dog of the wide receiver league, and it won't take long. I'm excited for Pittsburgh, man. I really think this is fun. There's a couple of years where you have Steelers fans and they're always excited because they love their team, and why wouldn't they? But I really think this is the first time I've seen the Steelers in 7 years, and I've been they could do it. I still think they got to get past Kansas City, but Kansas City's their only competitor in the AFC, period. I don't see anybody else beating Pittsburgh except for Kansas in the AFC. The NFC's whatever. But man, I don't know how they do it other than what Tony said. They always draft 2nd and 3rd round, almost always. It's 2nd, 3rd, 4th, usually 3rd in my opinion. But man, Claypool, 2nd round, what a monster. Every year they do this. Every year they do. It's like that meme. He can't keep getting away with it, but they keep getting away with it. Every year I just look at them and it's a defensive end or a wide receiver where I just throw my headset and I'm just why didn't anyone else see this guy? Every single time they do it. And it's getting pretty absurd. They are the kings of the draft, and realistically, it's always surprises me that they don't win more championships in my lifetime. I am shocked. They always have stacked teams. Like defensively, offensively, they have these stacked teams. And I think this is the year, man. Their defense, like we've been talking about their offense, their defense is incredible.
Yeah.
They are no joke. They are no joke. And if their defense can kind of hold off Kansas City, their offense can keep up with a slightly hampered Kansas City offense. Who knows? They could easily do it. This is their year, and they need to make it happen, man, in my opinion.
Yeah, Richie, that would be an interesting AFC Championship preview, the Chiefs Steelers. I mean, because you'd want to see if the Steelers defense can contain Patrick Mahomes, which is very possible. The Chiefs have shown that they are vulnerable at times during this season. And I feel that matchup could be a Steelers' dream defensively because they're so good at spying the quarterback. And Patrick Mahomes isn't used to going against top-tier defenses like that. I'm just not sure if he's got that thrown. We haven't seen much of a test. But we can sit here and talk about the array of weapons that the Steelers have for days. Kevin Colbert and the Rooney family have done a phenomenal job for years. They really emphasize winning. And I think that what we're overlooking here with the Steelers offense, especially their wide receiving core, is I feel that Juju has taken a huge step back since AB's departure. We haven't seen him completely step into that role. We know he's not AB. We know that. But he hasn't stepped in, really inserted himself as the number one receiver in that offense. I think that when they brought Chase Claypool in, a second round pick, I think that's what they're saying. Juju being on the last year of his contract, I think the Steelers have said that we have found our two, which will become a one. And I think that they ultimately will part ways with Juju, knowing what they have. But I think the number one receiver in this offense that's being overlooked is Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson is similar to what we saw ABB. Deontay Johnson, when you look at Deontay Johnson, pure route runner. Ben Roethlisberger hasn't had a route runner like this in a few years. And I think that in this offense, Deontay Johnson has really stepped up and has inserted himself into that role. We look at Deontay Johnson's target share compared to Juju's. Juju had a great game last week, but when you look at how much Ben trusts Deontay Johnson and Claypool right now, I don't think that Juju's getting X'd out. But I do ultimately think that when you look at Deontay Johnson and you look at AB, it's almost like the same guy out there. They're both 5'10", way the same. And I was watching football with a friend of mine. They said, is that AB out there? Because the guy is just a great route runner. And he proved that this past week. So I think that it's really going to be a competition in that receiving core, who's going to emerge as the one. Great thing is you have Big Ben, who's great at facilitating and moving that ball around, which he has emphasized to his wide receivers. I'm glad that you guys care about wins more than your numbers. He has come out and said that this year. And I think that's what you want as a Steelers fan out there. You'd want to see from your team. You'd want to see your quarterback making statements like that. Because when AB was there, Big Ben was not happy. As many touchdowns as Big Ben threw, he wasn't happy. So now I think that he has a receiving core that's really, really selfless. Because even though Juju hasn't stepped up, you still want a guy like that on your team that's selfless. Because I feel he is not a numbers guy. AB is a numbers guy. But when you've got guys like this that the Steelers target in the drafts every year, like Deontay Johnsons and the Chase Claypools and the Juju Smith-Schusters, they are on a level of consistency that most teams wish they could get to in the league. The Cowboys, we see them try to do that, but we all know that offense is not their problem. It's defense. So the Steelers, they can try to be the Steelers all they want to, but we all know that they're the Dallas football team for a reason. And so the Steelers, to me, will emerge in the next few weeks when they play Dallas. You all out there will see that firsthand.
Man, oh man. Yeah, I think there's three key components as long as I've been a fan. Well, I can't say as long as I've been a fan. Since Ben took the helm, I think there's three components to a successful Steelers season. number one's that curtain. They've got to have the defense. And I think that we've, like you guys have established, we've built that. We've got that back. That's what the franchise took so much pride in for so many years, and ultimately is what got the championships. Part of what got the championships that they do have. And then you need those options for Ben. And then the thing that I think that we've, at least, since I've been watching, that we've fallen back on, that third component, is buying Ben more time than he has to buy himself, because Ben gets sacked all the time because of the way he plays football. He's a wonder for it, that he can stand there and take these beatings and extend that pocket time and get down to, he's got the power, he's got the accuracy most of the time to get to these big threats. So they got to keep receivers coming in. I get it. But for a long time, our biggest issue, in my opinion, was the offensive line collapsing on Ben. And having to rely on him using that big bodied quarterback style. And that is taking years off of his career. And that has led to forcing the ball, like Tony was saying. He gets in this situation where he's getting pounded all the time. He starts trying to make things happen rather than going with the system that we know works. So I'm hoping this is the year, but honestly, I'm still going to stick with what, Tony's original sentiment before I even got a chance to dig my fingers into this NFL season. They're not showing me the team that I rooted to the Super Bowls in the past. They haven't showed me that yet. They are playing dominantly. They are showing signs of that same kind of defense, that iron, like Marvin said, iron curtain that they're famous for. But there's a lot of mistakes. There's been still forcing it. There's still like so many moments. I can't say for sure. Do I want to? Yeah, I want us to be over here the rest of the season talking about, here we go. But they got to start playing better football for me to be 100% on board, just like Tony said earlier.
Okay, guys. I think that was a good Steelers episode. I hope I never have to do another one. That was painful for me. Very painful. But looking forward to the next Wire with everybody, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you got some takeaways from the WNBA. If you're not a Steelers fan, you're on my team, but that's okay. They definitely deserve their due. I'm looking forward to this NFL season. And as much as I enjoy the NBA, and honestly, it's probably one of my favorites, NFL is king. I think that's the last comment on here. Let's be realistic. 60% of the NBA's viewership was lost during their little trip to Walt Disney. The NFL has been a meager 10% loss in attendance and viewership. So the NFL, doesn't matter what they do, as long as they're hitting each other, they're going to make money. And that's the NFL, and that will always be the NFL. And that is why it is the king of football, or sports rather. Let's try that again. So see you guys next week for The Wire. We'll probably still have some crazy basketball stuff. We'll definitely hit some football up, and we should probably touch up on some baseball. The World Series is probably going to be over, but we'll do a recap of LA winning again. So until next week, good luck. See you with The Wire. Appreciate it, guys.